Welcome to your Inspirational Astrology Horoscope for Friday, January 6th, 2023. I'm Astrologer Dave Palmer, the Leo King, here to illuminate the collective consciousness. Well, if you're not a part of HighVibe.tv, make sure that you are. This is where you get my daily horoscopes every day on HighVibe.tv, and of course, all the awesome shows that we do that you can see here on my YouTube that we put up clips of, where you can watch them in their full format. Our awesome app updates that we, of course, have done over the last couple months with the community, and more importantly, live chat with all the live streaming, all the notifications, a full community where you can post in and follow each other, and there's so much going on. HighVibe.tv is the place to be. Of course, the disruptive spiritual network. Make sure that you become a member. Of course, as you can see, I only do my new moon and full moon horoscopes and spiritual dance music in full on YouTube now. Well, I just finished my 5-year presentation too. The Eye of the Vulgar. You can get that by going to highvibe.tv and click on NYE 2023 and you'll see the links there. There's multiple videos, day 1, day 2, and also a Q&A that I just finished tonight to let people saturate in after the New Year's event, and it's pretty powerful. It was probably one of the most powerful parts of it too, where I added extra predictions that I had forgot to mention in the presentation. Well, today, of course, is a full moon in Cancer, the moon being in its dignified home of Cancer that it rules, but it's in opposition to Mercury retrograde. So when I think about this full moon, I think of, well, okay, it's at home. We have the sun that's been in great trine with the planet Uranus, which is, of course, in Taurus, and it's getting ready to get out of its retrograde. But, oh, what happened? I don't know where that happened here. That is a Mercury. There we go. That was a Mercury retrograde moment. So we have the sun here at 16 degrees, and it's trine over to Uranus, and the moon is going to make a nice sextile. So we have some really good aspects to Uranus here. But we're coming to a peak. This is a full moon. And you know, when it's our personal lives and when Mercury retrograde is in exact opposition to this full moon, and we're going to see the sun and Mercury make their conjunction right after this full moon, there's a lot of questions in our life. This Mercury retrograde is in the territory. If you think of when Saturn and Pluto met at 22 degrees with the sun and Mercury on January 12th of 2020, it was at 22 degrees. Mercury has been retrograding here, but at the same time, it was the south node and it was Jupiter at 8 and 9 degrees, where Mercury's going to stop 8 degrees. This is the last 3 years of review of what really has happened. And with Mars that is still retrograde and is on top of the star Aldebaran, this is where the truth is going to win. But it has been, oh, I just moved to the wrong. It's such a Mercury retrograde moment. I can't even get a fucking chart to stay. There we go. This is the most important factor to understand. Our personal lives want change. It's happening even when it doesn't feel like it. That's what's crazy. Mars is stopped. It's on top of Aldebaran. The truth is winning. Saturn and Uranus were in square for the last 2 years. I called it shattered reality. You're watching it right now. Have you been on your social media? Have you watched TV and been watching the reality be shattered? It's all shattering. All the stuff you thought was supposed to be true is not. All the experiments, all the things you were told, this is what it is, and it's all being shattered right now. And so this is a moment where we have to really realize that the responsibility in our life is part of this review process of the last 3 years. The zit is about to pop. It's 3 years of so many things that Saturn and Pluto had totally changed our lives within Capricorn, that we have to realize you have to be responsible for how you deal with your personal life. And the North Node Uranus, which we're seeing in great aspects with this full moon, and that's what I like about this full moon, is that the fact that the sun and the moon are in, you know, not exact, but at least we're seeing the nice aspects to the nodes. This is a full moon that can restore your comfort and understanding there are big things at play, yes, but we can deal with them. there are big choices up ahead when this reality is completely going to shatter and bring the truth out that this Mars is frustrated, and it's with Aldebaran, Archangel Michael, to bring down its true truth and, just like the picture behind me, push all the energy down of the false, the bad, the darkness that's been around and that has been literally been plaguing. The plague of the last 3 years has been the lies. The plague of the last 3 years has been whether or not that you have been able to see the forces that have coerced to try and control so much of the narrative, so much of our lives. And this is where we have to restore ourselves in that truth. But with Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Uranus retrograde, and coming into a new year with these 3 planets retrograde, it doesn't feel like we're in 2023. It's like 2022 is still rolling. And we are rolling into a new year of 2023, but when these 3 planets are still retrograde, we're not there yet. And all the wave of the last 3 years is about to crest. And I don't think it's any coincidence that this full moon is bringing up the review of your personal life and how you've done with the decisions you've made on whether or not you fell for the lies or whether you didn't and you stayed tough and you understood that it was about the responsibility that you've had over the last 3 years in your life to be responsible for your personal life, that it wasn't being responsible by listening to the craziness of things that didn't have all the info or that honestly didn't feel true or in alignment. This is where people who have been speaking the truth for the last 3 years, there's a grin on our face and an understanding that the truth is happening and it's happening right in front of your face right now. But it's hard because with Mars retrograde, with Mercury retrograde, with Mars being in Gemini, Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, and with Mercury being retrograde in Saturn's home, Capricorn, it's frustrating. It feels like a Mercury retrograde times a million and nothing's going anywhere and all this is not going to happen and why is this and everything that's happening. You have to find a restoration moment and find where your home energy is, which is in understanding how to take care of yourself. And I know that the world feels like it's a huge thing to undertake, but with Saturn finishing in Aquarius at 23 degrees, we're about to get right out of that shadow where Saturn went retrograde. We are also at the same time where Pluto this week at 27 degrees is getting ready to come to 28 degrees where it went retrograde to come out of its shadow. And then January 12th, no coincidence, 3 years later, Mars comes direct. So you have to remember that on this 6th of January, we are 6 days away from Mars stationing direct. We have Uranus on the 22nd of January with that new moon stationing direct. We have Mercury getting ready to come direct around this time. These next 2 weeks with this new moon that's going to be coming after this full moon, and I know I'm looking so far ahead because you should be, while you're also looking back at the last 3 years, to find a center point into your personal life, to find a place to restore who you really are and to get back on your true destiny and not be diverted. Because this is a time in your life where I know it's confusing, and when you have the moon opposed Mercury retrograde, it's like, oh, especially in Cancer, it's a full moon. It's like we want to feel a certain way, but yet we still have responsibilities. We still have a lot of things that we're trying to understand about where is this world going and which direction is it going to take, especially having Saturn that is the dispositor of where this Mercury retrograde is and all that with the sun in Capricorn and Pluto in Capricorn is in Aquarius. It's about the future. It's coming out of shadow. That you're going to have to be bold now by knowing how to take a better understanding and a better care of your life by actually being willing to look at, well, what side was I on for the last 3 years? Where was I actually at? Was I responsible enough to make choices in my life and be an adult? We have to be the adult in the room and at the table right now. We can't be at the little kid's table. This full moon in Cancer wants that little kid energy. You know why? Because that full moon in Cancer is in a square to Chiron in Aries. And with Jupiter that is on its way to meet with Chiron over these next couple months, you have to realize that this is where you cannot overinflate your ego, especially when it comes to, oh, I just want it to be this way and I want it to happen now. With Mars being retrograde in Gemini, and this has not happened in the entire space of Gemini since 1943 into 44. But this is where the truth comes out. This is where the side of truth truly starts to win. And you have to realize that this is a moment of restoring that adult energy within you and not freaking out and not feeling like you don't know where anything's going and not having the stresses overwhelm you and having that true grit to move through and find support with people and understand how to understand people emotionally. That's a huge one. You know, this is a time for us to understand that we can't just do things alone, that we just can't go and be alone. Jupiter and Aries with Chiron there is not about to give you the best door if you're going to choose, I want to overinflate my independence of my own self and my own way. It has to have a coalition with others, and it has to be having a meaning about connecting with others. This is a Sun trine Uranus. This is Mercury retrograde trine Uranus. This is time where there's been so many amazing things being put together that if you look at your life over the last couple of weeks, you can start to see all the pieces coming together. Instead of feeling like you can't see, the truth is in this moment, you are illuminating what you can see and feel. With the knowing of just within a week, and then by that new moon in 2 weeks in the Chinese New Year, ironically, of course, this whole world is going to begin its shift into the world we've never even dreamed or even possibly conceived of what it will ever have felt like or even been thought about. That I know it's tough, and I know that this is a moment where, you know, restoring energy feels like I don't want to maybe deal with things, or maybe I want to just keep picking at the scabs and what's not good and what's uncomfortable. But this is about acceptance. Acceptance that you're responsible to actually take care of yourself, but also it's about taking care of yourself and continuing where you know truth is, where you know that you have to be the adult in your life and you still have to have responsibilities, and what's the best for you in your long term. Because if you're going to be at that little kid's table and be crying and complaining and I don't have enough of my milk here, I don't have enough of this, you know, this is where we have to realize that, you know, there's going to be a lot of energy that's bringing up our personal lives and our emotions and our family and all of our energy that we want to restore in our life, but it's complicated. Uranus is throwing curveballs. It's in alignment with the sun, it's in alignment with the moon, it's in alignment with this Mercury retrograde. But with Mars stopped, and let's look at Mars speed. Mars is not happy. Mars already doesn't like to be retrograde. Remember, it's the only planet that's the longest of being direct before it goes through retrograde. But remember, it doesn't like to go slow either, and it's only doing 4 minutes in a day. It's also out of bounds at 24 degrees of declination north, and also this full moon is out of bounds by a whopping lot. So do not go out of bounds with your emotions about situations that honestly are for little kids. Now, if you're a little kid and you're watching this, I get it. But if you're an adult, this is where you're going to have to restrain yourself and realize, I need to feel, I don't need to restrain my feelings, but I need to understand how to have a better way to present my feelings to others, to communicate to others. And I can't be a crybaby right now. I can't, you know, if there's situations that aren't going the way that I feel that are happy, I can't complain. I can't let that overshadow the truth of, okay, that's what it is. And let me just come back to my restorative self and restore myself and restore who I am and restore that I got to keep moving forward and not let all these personal burdens that are really not too bad of a burden because it's more of an over-exaggerated, ego-emotionally based, I want, I need. This is also an important time to remember that with the South Node in Scorpio, you don't want to be destroying your life by not building beautiful things. This is not, keep building your bridges, especially now. Capricorn's about strategy. It's time to strategize about your personal life in this extreme new world that the beginnings of it are showing in the next 2 weeks. And it will shatter our reality, because the reality we once lived will never be the same again. And all the things that you were told it was going to be, it's not. And all the things that over the last 3 years that seem to be that this is the way it was and it's all going to be shattered. And so this is a great full moon to release all of the pain, all of the emotional baggage, all of the things that you literally have been a little kid about that is not worth the time. Uranus and Taurus is saying, let's actually focus on things that are worthwhile. Let's focus on connections. Let's focus on ways for us to find ways and innovative ways for us to be better at our strategies and actually achieve great things in our life right now. And yes, I know Mars retrograde, Mercury retrograde. It sucks. And with Uranus that's stationing and stopping and in retrograde, it feels like the electricity's not on. Mars in Gemini retrograde feels like there's no stimulation. Mercury retrograde in Capricorn feels like I don't really know if the plans are going to work. I don't really know if I'm going to be able to make it next month, let alone 2 months down the road. But I'm here to tell you all of that is because of these emotions that are all being triggered by your sensitivity to your weak spots, to where it's not just because it's not going the way you want to, it's because are you putting enough effort in? Are you putting enough of your work in? Are you actually paying attention to things that are important? Venus in Aquarius is telling us, especially because the North Node is in Taurus, the dispositor of that is Venus, that our destiny is focused on right now the understanding of taking a better view at things, disconnecting from things that don't feel good, but also making sure that we're not isolating ourselves from things that really are good. We have to remember to build bridges, and we have to remember to see where the links are and the connections to great things. We can't get caught in the past. I know that Pisces gets associated with the past, but Cancer loves the past. And a full moon in Cancer really wants the past. It's even in good aspects with Neptune here. But this is not about trying to relive your past. This is time to let your past go. And also remember that what has ever happened over the last 3 years, if you've been on that era of providence that I said on New Year's coming into 2023 years ago, or the warnings that I gave in all of my predictions for all those years prior, if you listen to yourself and you followed the truth and you didn't fall for this crazy shattered reality, this is your moment to be excited and to be ready for the moment of truth, the moment of destiny that's coming in this next 2-week cycle, and to emotionally remove yourself from all the places that are not worth your energy of getting upset over, that feels overwhelming and that makes you feel like, you know what, you're insignificant because you know why? Because you don't want to take the responsibility. It's time to take responsibility for your actions. It's time to learn to accept things the way they are and find a way. You don't need to push hard, but you have to be willing to show up. You have to be willing to be the adult in the room. You have to be willing to continue to be tough. And this is a time to be tough. It's a time that, you know what? Are the emotions as necessary as needed? Are these feelings as big and over dramatized as really they need to be? This is a time for us to really find our center of our emotional space and the ability for us to truly thrive. Because when Mars stations direct next week, 3 years to the day that Saturn, Pluto, Sun, Mercury met, and that Mercury has finally made it in the retrograde zone to finally retrograde over where all the planets in Capricorn were during that whole set up. It's Capricorn that was planned of what this last 3 years has been. Boy, oh boy. This is a time where you can truly thrive by strategizing yourself and understanding where in the world things are really going to go. It will not be what you think. And everything feels like it's almost looking like it was at the beginning of 2020, but all inversed. And so if you're having fears about your personal life, that's normal and that's okay. But Uranus and Taurus is here to say, is it really? Isn't there a better life? Isn't there ways that you can look at all the amazing, innovative ways that you could figure things out and find amazing things to do and understand the timing of events and understand that everybody at this moment has a choice to make that's huge. Are you just going to bury yourself with your head in the sand and cry? Or are you going to rise up and do something great? Are you going to be something? That's what this Jupiter in Aries is. And even that Chiron. Are you going to be a guide by showing people that there's more than just you and offering opportunities to actually be solid and strong and somebody who has not just to open a door, but to actually get to where that door is open? That's what Capricorn is. And that takes strength, and more importantly, that takes commitment, and even more important than that, this Pluto Capricorn at 27 is the commitment that we all have to make to something that's greater than ourselves, that's a higher meaning and a higher goal, and that we have to stay on those paths. If you're trying to remove yourself from things that have higher meanings and big goals, you just have your head like a flamingo in the sand. So release that part of yourself. Release that little baby. Release that part of yourself that's too afraid. You've got shit. I'm going to pick up some cards. You got shit that you haven't been handling with all the Pisces, Jupiter, Neptune we went through this year. You got stuff that's like making you feel scared because you're too afraid to face it. Face it. Don't be a little baby. Don't be a little immature moment in your life right here that you actually are realizing subconsciously that's what you really are. But you don't have to be. This is really where the adults of truth are coming to finally have our message be heard. Because we have been saying it. We have been coming from love the whole time to make people aware. The truth of what misinformation is coming. What you've been told is misinformation is quite opposite. And anybody at this point knows that deep within their soul, or their head is a baby in the sand because they don't want to see it. It's too hurtful to admit when you've been swindled by the trickster Mercury with Saturn and Pluto and Sun on January 12th of 2020. And you know, stop looking at the players and who the person is and what the thing is. It's the fact that we were all tested, and you know what? This is a great moment for all of us to come together and go, it's about how we're going to all move forward together in this moment and not allow this last 3 years to happen again. And this is a full moon where you got to let your little scaredy pants. Remember, there's no stimulation. It feels like the electricity's not on. It feels like there's a lot of confusion in what direction and how are we going to get there? And is the strategy going to work of actually being in truth? It is. Hold that as your fucking emotional self and you will fucking thrive. And this is not a time to make a crazy change and a crazy move and do some crazy thing with this Mars still retrograde for 6 days after this full moon and with Mercury still retrograde and Uranus retrograde. Remember, this is about planning, strategy, because when we come to when that Sun and Pluto meet and then a new moon in Aquarius in the next couple weeks and with all these planets turning direct, it will be the world that we have never seen, and the evolution and truth with Mars coming direct on top of Aldebaran. That is the moment where we see Mars that has been hanging out with Aldebaran for so long to bring God's military commander of truth down to us in our life. And we all have to make sure that we are on the side of truth and that we are not in the false light, that we are not putting our head in the sand, because we don't want to listen to what is the responsible thing to do, is to listen to the truth and uncovering the greatest deceptions that have ever been caused in humanity since 700 years ago. That have been playing out in your programming and your time system and everything that has been going on in your life. So it's much bigger than just yourself. It's about all of us, and it's about where this destiny has been turning and whether or not you're paying attention. Or whether or not you are just so focused on your little emotional shit that you forgot how to be an adult, you forgot how to be responsible, and more importantly, you forgot how to handle shit and be a boss. Because a boss is truly the beautiful part of a boss that's showing up and willing to take on the injustices, the crazy shit in the world, and be there for other people and find innovative ways and create right now and build bridges. Because the stimulation, when it turns back on, it'll make you thrive or it'll make you freak out because you just want to just sit in your wet diaper. Card I got for this full moon. Nine of Wands upright. This is a card of defense. It's a card of preparing. It's a card of unsure whether to make the next move or not. It's a card of hesitation. I know that it feels that way. But really, if you allow yourself to realize, I'm preparing, and you don't need to be holding on to that wand like it's the end of your life. And this is about getting rid of the fears of your personal insecurities and your personal things about not being bold and being willing to step into being something on this planet more than what you believed that you could be, and being part of great communities in this collective and doing things that actually implement hope and joy and positivity. My confirmation card for this is the Four of Cups. This is definitely where the most amazing gifts in your life are right in front of you, and you need to start paying attention. You're not paying attention to the greatest gifts because you're hesitated, because you're looking at things that you would rather want instead that are really empty. The universe is handing you the greatest gift of your life right now, and don't fuck it up. Be bold. Be an adult. And let's let Uranus show us the fucking craziness for a better way, and how amazing we all are, and how amazing individually we are to contribute to this. And let's watch as this full moon allows us to find the home of our destinies, which is truth. And to stop acting like scaredy cats, and to stop being so afraid to speak your truth and to live it and embody it, because it's no longer allowed after this full moon and the 2 weeks that come. It's just not. We will not survive as a species with Pluto entering into Aquarius in the next couple months if everybody is going to keep their head buried in the sand and worried about every fucking next moment. Make it to the top of this mountain, even when it feels like your shoes are going to fall off. And even when your nose is so cold, it feels like it's going to fall off. It won't. I love you all very much. I'll see you on High Vibe. Adios.